Welcome to Find It in Fergus Falls. I'm Lisa Workman, the president of the Fergus Falls Area Chamber of Commerce. Well, thank you so much for tuning into today's show, and we have a special guest for you today. We're going to be visiting with our state representative for District 8A, Jordan Rasmusson will be joining us. And he's going to give us a legislative update of some of the accomplishments that were made over this legislative session that impact both our residents as well as our businesses in the Fergus Falls area. And I just want to let you know that the Fergus Falls Chamber is the #1 business advocate for local businesses. We work with the local elected officials, both city council and city staff. We work with our state legislators, both with Jordan Rasmusson and Senator Bill Engebretson, to bring those issues that impact our members to the places and the decision makers that can change things in favor of those businesses. So just wanted to let everyone know that we are your #1 advocate, and we have a great lines of communication with our local elected officials, both on the city, the county, and the state level. So if you're a chamber member, I invite you to get in touch with me to share what your concerns are, whether they have to do with laws that are in the pipeline to be passed, or different things that are coming about in our local and state legislatures. So stay tuned. After a brief moment, we'll be joined by State Representative Jordan Rasmusson.
All right, give me a spot. You know my motto, safety first.
They could be dangerous. I think we should call animal control.
Animal control?
To be safe.
Don't worry. I got this. It's a new motto.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of teens in foster care who don't need perfection. They need you.
Well, welcome back to Find It in Fergus Falls. I'm joined by now our state representative, Jordan Rasmusson, serving our district here, 8A, in the Fergus Falls area. And congratulations, Jordan, on surviving a tumultuous legislative session and your first session. So how did it go for you?
Thanks for having me, Lisa. It's great to be on. We started off the legislative session looking at potentially one of the largest budget deficits that we've ever had in Minnesota state history. And by the time we got our February forecast, which we used to actually pass budget bills off of, we were actually looking at one of the largest surpluses that the state has ever had, in addition to federal dollars that were coming in.
Which is a pretty amazing swing. That doesn't, by any means, it has not been a typical year or a typical, the last 24 months have not been typical. So that was, I'm sure that was an adjustment when it comes to what bills will be passed and where funds will be going as far as the budget goes.
It was definitely a 180 in terms of just the conversations that we were having at the Capitol around what decisions we were going to have to make. And one of the things I'm really excited that got done this legislative session is that we got tax conformity for PPP loans.
Yes.
That was a really big deal for a lot of small businesses here in the Fergus Falls area. We also got tax exemption for individuals who lost their jobs last year and were getting unemployment insurance.
Right.
We had a lot of businesses and families who were stuck with tax bills that they didn't anticipate they were going to have to pay. And so it took too long, in my opinion, to get that done. We should have gotten that done early on in session.
Yes.
But unfortunately, it became one of the bargaining chips towards the end when we were trying to get everything wrapped up. We were able to get PPP tax conformity, which is going to help businesses here in Fergus Falls.
Absolutely, and that is a huge thing because a lot of the businesses were, provided with the Paycheck Protection Program loans that were helping them keep their employees, even though things were shut down. It helped them stay in business, and we are so fortunate in Fergus Falls that we didn't lose businesses due to the COVID shutdowns and things like that. So those PPP loans were so appreciated by the businesses, and then the fact that you passed the legislation that it was not taxable income for the businesses, because boy, we fielded a lot of phone calls at the chamber office from businesses wondering what to do and how to handle it, and then of course the accountants that had to do everything twice. So
That's right.
appreciate the patience of the legislature as well as our business community for kind of rolling with the punches on what's been thrown at them over the last couple of years. So.
And one of the big things we fought for this session was making sure that there weren't any tax increases on Minnesotans. We had basically $4 billion to play with in terms of surplus monies.
Right.
And unfortunately, we had some Twin Cities politicians propose an additional $1 billion of tax increases on top of that. And so, I would have liked to have seen more tax relief beyond just PPP and some more permanent tax relief. We weren't able to get that in the divided government situation, but we were able to hold off on an increase in the gas tax, a new tier for income tax that was proposed by House Democrats. And so we really just, were able to hold the line on new taxes coming on board.
Which we would consider a win, especially as you mentioned, a divided government. So this has been your first year serving in the state legislature and in a divided government. So tell me kind of overall, how did things go? What was the experience like?
Yeah, it's a very interesting role because you have, for me in the House, we have 134 members from all over the state of Minnesota, everything from the Northeast to downtown Minneapolis, and so a lot of diversity represented at the state capitol. And I was pleasantly surprised to be able to find a lot of common ground with colleagues that maybe doesn't get highlighted in the news. But one of my big priorities for this session was passing some key mental health bills that were really going to impact the Fergus Falls community, the Otter Tail County community. And so I was the chief author on a bill that will double funding for crisis stabilization units.
Much needed.
Much needed.
Very much needed.
We have one here in the Fergus Falls area. It's a 4-bed unit. And from talking with the people who run it, they were saying it was at risk of closing. They were basically only getting 50 cents on the dollar from the state. And so there's only 3 crisis stabilization units left in the entire state. And we're hearing from advocates that this bill that got passed, bipartisan support, is going to increase access to mental health beds, especially in greater Minnesota, where we don't maybe have larger facilities that they do down in the metro.
Right. Not anymore. When you think about it, the mental health that was being served for decades at the Kirkbride, at the Regional Treatment Center, and now they're much smaller units and broken out by level of care and things like that. But again, not the same funding that there was available, decades ago. So thank you for authoring that bill and getting it to the finish line. That's a big achievement in and of itself.
Yeah, it was definitely a little touch and go throughout session. It wasn't included in the original Health and Human Services bill, but we basically had the votes to pass it on the floor. I offered it as an amendment, and it got added on, which is very rare down at the legislature to be able to amend something on the floor.
Definitely.
And so we were able to get that passed. I was also the lead Republican negotiator for a bill called PsyPact, which is going to increase access to licensed psychologists here in the state of Minnesota. Right now, there's a lot of barriers with psychologists practicing across state lines, and especially for a border community like us, we have a lot of Minnesotans who have North Dakota patients, a lot of North Dakota providers who have Minnesota patients, and so this is something that overnight increased the amount of licensed psychologists in the state of Minnesota by hundreds. Will make a really big impact, especially in greater Minnesota.
Definitely.
And that was something I had, just heard so strongly from people during the campaign, was the importance of trying to improve access to mental health care, and so was really glad to be able to make some real bipartisan progress on that this session.
And those will make some great impacts, not just in Fergus Falls and Otter Tail County, but throughout the state of Minnesota too. So thank you for taking that on. This has been definitely a mental health and mental illness has certainly been brought to the forefront over the last couple of years with the different crises that we've gone through for that. You've also authored or worked on getting some things passed locally that literally have impacted Fergus Falls immediately, and we hear it every day at the chamber.
Yes.
With the downtown riverfront.
Yeah, with the downtown riverfront, there was a correction bill that needed to get passed in order to let that project proceed. And that is more than $2 million in state funding from both bonding. I serve on the Capital Investment Committee and also other pools of state dollars. And so, was really excited to see the partnership come together between the city, a lot of really generous local donors who have been committed to Fergus Falls stepping up and to actually go break ground on the project this summer. And it's exciting to see the construction take place. Another local thing that I really focused on this last session was getting the Fergus Falls Driver's Exam Center reopened.
Yes.
This was something I heard from business owners who needed employees to be able to get CDLs, to access job opportunities, talked with single parents who didn't have time to go drive 100 miles round trip to go take a driver's exam test. And so this is something that I also worked on a bipartisan basis, and we actually got not only the Fergus Falls Driver's Exam Center reopened, but legislation I worked on is going to open more than 90 driver's
fantastic.
exam centers across the state of Minnesota, especially in rural areas that, frankly, the administration wanted to just shut down and make people drive to other areas and communities.
Right, and we want it open here in Fergus Falls too, because that also brings people from, the surrounding areas to Fergus Falls, and it helps our entire business community, because if they're coming to Fergus Falls, maybe it's their, 16-year-old's first driver's license, chances are they're gonna go out and celebrate with, go out for lunch or something like that afterwards. So it's got a great economic impact, as you mentioned, and especially for those working to maintain or attain their CDL licenses. It's going to be a big impact, positive impact for our business community as well. So thank you for your work on that and for seeing that through. So a lot of big wins for you in the first round of your first term as a state representative. Anything surprise you along the way?
I would say, the big surprise for me was just the importance of relationships, right? It's politics is a people business.
Definitely.
And so for me, it was, getting to understand some of the people and personalities and how you can work with them. And so, for example, to get the driver's center reopened, a key relationship that I had to build was with the Democrat chair on the Transportation Committee,
Sure.
Frank Hornstein. And I actually, was able to work with him and try to find how we could address this issue in a way that was sustainable for the state of Minnesota, got the driver's center reopened here in Fergus Falls, but also helped out other communities across the
Right.
state. And so just having those trust-based relationships, even if you don't agree maybe on a lot of the big issues, you can still work on items that are going to help your community and help the state of Minnesota.
And truly, it's all about finding that common ground to make some positive impact. So, Jordan, as you kind of prepare and get ready for the next session, what can folks in the Fergus Falls area, how can they help you do your job better in representing them at the state capitol?
I would say constituent input and feedback really drives my work at the state capitol. On mental health, for example, that wasn't something that was necessarily a personal interest of mine, but I had
Sure.
just heard so much about it from the community. Same thing with the driver's exam center. That was something where community members, business owners, your members, Lisa, were coming to me asking for something to be done. And so that really does set my agenda. And for me, as we go into this next session, it looks like we're going to have, again, another historic budget surplus to deal with. And I frankly think, Minnesota is one of the top tax states in the country.
They are.
And we feel that.
Not a place that we want to be in the top of the list.
A lot of great things about Minnesota, but our taxes aren't one of them. And so that's something I want to work on to see, what can we do to get tax relief, or at least make the case to Minnesotans as to why tax relief will actually improve the economy, improve opportunities here in Minnesota, improve growth, which actually gives you more resources in the future to invest in things like education, state parks, things that Minnesotans value and care about.
Yep, definitely. Well, we invite folks to get in contact with you, and of course, as the chamber, we're representing our members. We have a great conversations, great connection points between us, so that the members that have issues or things that are affecting their industry, through the chamber, we can bring them directly to you at the state capitol too. So we appreciate that partnership and wish you a wonderful and enjoyable rest of your summer. I would imagine there are probably some more parades that are going to be, you'll be participating in this summer, and off to the next session. So if folks want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you, Jordan?
The best way is to give me a call. My number is 218-205-5062. They can also just go online to my official website, and they have my email address, contact information on there, and so folks should feel free to reach out and get connected with me on the issues that matter to them.
Fantastic. Well, once again, congratulations and thank you for serving the businesses and residents of District 8A in your first session, and wish you the best for the upcoming sessions as well.
Thanks for having me, Lisa.
You bet. We'll be back after a little break.
Traditional light bulbs actually generate 9 times more heat than light. Switch to Energy Star light bulbs, and you'll realize just how much cash you were really burning through. Saving energy saves you money. Learn more at energysavers.gov.
Well, thank you again for joining us here on Find It in Fergus Falls, and I want to thank our state representative, Jordan Rasmusson, for serving us for this first year in the state legislature and serving the residents and businesses of District 8A. And once again, the Fergus Falls Chamber is here to be your advocate, so please get in touch with me, Lisa Workman, at the Fergus Falls Chamber. I'd be happy to bring your issues forward. This has been Find It in Fergus Falls, and we'll see you again next time.